So here we see pretty normal, except for the cracks in the street. Nice and green. Pan right, not so normal. The crack is still steaming, putting out quite a bit of SO2, but it's really not like that bad a deal with no mask on today, so it's not a big deal. We have massive steam and venting in my front yard. There's the neighbor's lot from my front yard. And there's a bunch of explosions in the background, which I can only assume are from the new fissure that opened up. Neighbor's house. What used to be it. My formerly lovely and green and lush backyard. Not so much anymore. Here's the other side of the house. Just a tad damaged. Here's the massive crack. And this goes all the way to the road where I swallowed that van. Here are my silly friends. So here we are in my other neighbor's backyard. They have a massive crack system, and the house is literally falling into that crack system here.
Blue flames burning in the lava from Hawaii's Kilauea volcano are raising new fears of explosions there. Mark Strassman is in Pahoa, Hawaii, with the latest on that story. Mark, good morning.
Good morning. It really is something to see, these fountains of lava and the enormous lava lake that's still swelling behind me. But if some of this molten rock flows west of here, it could close off the one remaining open highway in that area. And that could mean an evacuation by helicopter of 1,000 people. After 3 weeks of gawking at images of bright red lava bursting skyward, the Big Island's focus has shifted to something blue and worrisome.
A line of methane crossing the road through the cracks.
Methane gas, a result of the lava burning plants and trees. Scientists say it can trigger explosions if ignited while trapped underground.
That's the first time, maybe the second time I've seen the blue flames. It's very dramatic, very eerie.
In communities like Leilani Estates, fountains of nearby lava threaten more homes. Scary?
Not at all. This is like Pele is our goddess of the island, and she grows and makes things bigger. This is like the island giving birth right now.
For now, Kilauea seems to have spared a threatened geothermal power plant. But there are also spots where officials worry about widening cracks.
The first thing that came to my mind was, are we ever going to be able to go home?
After a neighbor sent her this video, Chantel Picaro discovered a massive crack is now running through her backyard and under her house.
For me, I explained to my children, home is when we're all together. That's our home. So we can always rebuild. As long as we have each other, that's the most important thing.
Take a look for a minute at what the Big Island is confronting. These fissures bursting with lava. It's like a scene from the dawn of time when the world was remade over and over. This close, I can feel the heat and the power of a volcanic eruption that shows no sign of slowing down.
يا سبحان الله العاصفة المدارية اللي محملة بالغيوم الركامية جاي تتقرب علينا احنا بموقع الحديدة. سبحان الله سبحان الله. هاي حدود العاصفة والأمطار اللي نازلة من عندها مبينة. العاصفة شلون اقتربت سبحان الله سريعة جدا. Call Chief Officer. Warrior. Chief Officer.
High waters herald the coming storm. Locals in the Omani city of Salalah gather their belongings and scramble to evacuate. Buses and helicopters take the vulnerable out of the path of Cyclone Mukunu. Emergency services are being deployed and people are being urged to seek safety. The government warns that low-lying areas are at risk from flooding. The Yemeni island of Socotra offers a glimpse of what's to come. Cars and boats have been washed away by high waters. Hundreds more have been forced from their homes. The internationally recognized government has declared the island a disaster zone. But the turmoil of the war in Yemen raises questions as to how much help they can be. Meteorologists are tracking the path of the storm, predicting what will happen next. Mekunu is gaining strength, and by Saturday it'll carry winds of 190 kilometers per hour. Oman is used to seasonal rains, but powerful cyclones are rare in this region. There have only been 17 in more than 100 years.
Four new sinkholes opened up in a neighborhood that had already been evacuated in the Villages, Florida on Monday, May 21st. 3 of those sinkholes are visible. 1 of them is in the roadway, and 2 of them are located on individual properties. A 4th sinkhole has reopened underneath the adjoining lake on the golf course behind the homes. Several sinkholes opened February 15th, forcing the evacuation of 2 residences. The one that is near the sinkhole in the roadway has been evacuated since then. Marion County Sheriff's Office continued to monitor the situation.
When you hear that a water tanker is coming and you're in a heat wave without water.
It's been about a week now without water in our house. What are we supposed to do?
In the foothills of the Himalayas, the town of Shimla has run out of water. Residents say it's like living in an oven where they can't cook, let alone shower.
We are all suffering from the water crisis. The whole community is. Only 1 tanker comes, but it's not enough. We do not even get 1 bucket of water. It is not just this area, but in other areas as well. It has been 2 to 3 weeks without water.
Water tankers are being used across northern India, but even that is rationed. Some people are allowed just 5 litres of water a day. In comparison, when Cape Town was in drought earlier this year, the limit was 10 times that. The risk of waterborne illnesses increases when people try to live on less than 50 litres a day, and northern India is seeing that firsthand.
He is suffering from vomiting, diarrhea and fever. The doctor has given him injections and put him on a saline drip. Now things are better.
Nearly 500 kilometres from Shimla, the Moradabad District Hospital is full of children sick from heat exposure and contaminated water.
Patients coming here are suffering from a mix of viral and bacterial diarrhea. 80% of the children coming into outpatient department are affected by seasonal communicable diseases. It is my belief that the children are falling ill due to the rise in temperatures.
Water shortages are not new in India, but climate change is. The country cracking under ever hotter summers. The length of heat waves is increasing. Last year was India's 4th hottest on record, and reservoir levels are at their lowest in a decade, leaving drinking water out of reach just when it's needed the most.
Good evening. Our first big storm this season has unleashed a dangerous fire, destroying buildings, threatening homes and forcing evacuations at Albany. It was just part of the fallout the storms caused across the state. We have live updates coming in from Albany, South Perth and Mundajong, where searchers battled harsh conditions in the search for missing grandfather Ian Collette. The fires at Albany destroyed at least 2 buildings and forced evacuations after winds of more than 100 kilometres an hour got hold of burn-offs. Michael Stamp begins our coverage.
A home destroyed, the result of a night of fire mayhem just outside Albany. This is one of 2 houses lost in the unexpected emergency in our Great Southern. Sparked by up to 50 controlled burns, landowners were expecting rain and took the chance to burn off. Instead, they got howling northwesterly winds, gusts exceeding 100 kilometres an hour and driving the fires out of control.
And you just wouldn't expect it. I mean, I've been here 68 years and I've never seen one come from the north at this time of the year, ever.
The Department of Parks and Wildlife also did 2 prescribed burns, but they escaped. Now 17,000 hectares has been destroyed in the Stirling Ranges.
Unfortunately, they're incredibly trying conditions in front of this cold change coming through, and unfortunately with no rain, then it makes it very difficult to control any escapes.
This was the view at Nutkin Lodge farm stay in Peaceful Bay last night. The owner, her family and 4 guests sheltering in a paddock as firefighters battled a wall of flames.
They surrounded us when the intensity got so strong and proceeded to water everybody down, including themselves, sort of thing, as the embers were flying.
All day, authorities have been warning there is a threat to lives and homes as 150 firefighters battled the flames. There are reports livestock has been killed, 50 residents evacuated, some shell-shocked. This is where the blazes are located, hemming in Albany on 2 sides. One home lost north of Albany, but the blaze to the west is now their biggest worry.
The strong winds will make it difficult through the evening, so it's a matter of just keep pinching in on the fires and tracking those and trying to get the fire locked in.
As I say, the perfect storm arrived that you couldn't foresee happening.
We begin this morning with what could be a washout of a holiday for millions of people living along the Gulf Coast. Storm watches are in effect from New Orleans area to the Florida Panhandle southwest of Tallahassee as subtropical storm Alberto slowly moves northeast from the Caribbean. Alberto is about 95 miles east of Cozumel, Mexico, packing winds of 40 miles an hour. The storm brought heavy rain, flash floods, and dangerous rip currents on Friday.
Planning for the big one. Authorities in Southern California are working with FEMA and the Red Cross to prepare for a major earthquake.
Do you have a place to go after the disaster?
Most of the training is taking place in Arizona, where thousands of California evacuees will head if a major quake hits the southern part of the state.
But what is the plan if a massive quake shakes the Bay Area? New tonight, CBS 13 meteorologist Lisa Meadows joins us live at the Red Cross in Sacramento with more. Lisa?
That's right, Tony and Adrian. When it comes to the Red Cross, they're pretty much ready for any natural disaster. But when it comes to the Cal OES Bay Area Earthquake Emergency Plan, that could send a lot of people headed our way.
Do you have a place to go after the disaster?
Ron Talman is a Red Cross volunteer. He's among 1,000 Californians fleeing to Arizona in a drill this week to make sure Arizona is ready for an influx of people from a massive earthquake in California, a quake that scientists say is inevitable.
Part of the scenario is a fuel line is compromised in California, which directly affects Arizona.
The training is taking place over 3.5 days at the National Guard base near Phoenix. The goal is to make sure all agencies can work together and to spot any potential problem areas.
Where our systems are stressed when it comes to sheltering, when it comes to feeding.
That same mass exodus would take place in Northern California if a major earthquake struck the Bay Area. According to a Cal OES earthquake plan, an estimated 5 million people would evacuate, with many headed our way. The plan designates 6 counties outside the Bay Area as host areas, including Sacramento, San Joaquin, and Yolo. And they could be away from home for months.
Historically, we've seen damage to water systems being one of the most disruptive things that happens. The estimate in Shakeout was $50 billion in business disruption cost from lack of water. Because it's going to take up to 6 months to get it back.
And Cal Expo is actually one of those refugee centers, so if this were to happen, this is one location where we may end up seeing a lot of people come.
North Korea's government says it has destroyed its only nuclear weapon testing site. CBS News is the only U.S. broadcast network there to witness it.
North Korean officials brought about 24 journalists to the testing area in the northeast part of the country. The site was shut down earlier this year by dictator Kim Jong-un ahead of a scheduled summit with President Trump next month. Ben Tracy sent us this report by phone a short time ago describing what he saw this morning.
Good morning. We are now on a train having just left North Korea's main nuclear test site in far northern North Korea. We were on the site for about 9 hours, and it was surreal to see it in person after reporting on this for so long. Now, the North Koreans brought a small group of media there for a very specific purpose. They wanted to show that they were decommissioning, that they were destroying this nuclear test site. So what they did is they blew up the 3 remaining test tunnels at that site. They claim that 2 of those tunnels were still usable, that they could have conducted further tests there, but they put explosives inside and they blew them up. Before they did that, they actually opened up the tunnels. We were able to walk right up to them, see the explosives inside, and then they removed us to some viewing stands further away and blew them up. They then told us to walk back up towards the tunnel to see it in person to verify that indeed it had been closed. Now, the problem is we're journalists. We're not nuclear experts. So there was no one on site, no outside expert there to verify that what North Korea claims it has done, which is closing its nuclear test site, has actually occurred. And we did ask our government minder if they're going to allow somebody in to do that, and he said he doesn't think so because they don't feel that they need somebody else to say that they've done what they say they have now done.
Robert, we do begin with breaking news for our viewers in the West. We want to show you these pictures. Aerial shot of a middle school in Noblesville, Indiana. What has become a familiar scene. Students appear to be evacuating, running from their own school after reports that there has been a shooter there at Noblesville West Middle School. We want to turn to ABC News Chief Justice Correspondent Pierre Thomas. Pierre, again, another familiar scene for us.
Disturbing, a parent's worst nightmare. Reports of an active shooter at a middle school, TJ. Law enforcement officials, including ATF, have gone to the scene to support the local police. We don't have any word yet on injuries. Don't know how many people may have been hurt, but we do know, according to the fire department that has responded, that a shooter, suspected shooter, is in custody. So now law enforcement will try to get there, get control of the scene, try to see if there are any injured or people in more dire situations, deal with that situation, get the school under control. We don't know if the entire community is on lockdown, but right now, TJ, law enforcement officials descending on that scene, trying to get that situation under control, and obviously trying to reach out to parents to let them know that their kids are okay, TJ.
All right, Pierre Thomas with the very latest for us there. Thank you so much. Anything else breaks out, we'll certainly keep you posted on the breaking news we're getting out of another school. It appears another possible school shooting.
Families were hosting 2 children's birthday parties at a popular Indian restaurant last night when an explosion shattered the celebrations.
Many people are screaming. They are trying to run out from the restaurant.
It happened in Mississauga, a multicultural suburb just west of Toronto, Canada. Police say these 2 men entered the restaurant at about 10:30 last night wearing zip-up hoodies and concealing their faces. One was carrying a bucket or paint can that investigators say contained a bomb. Police say it went off soon after the men planted the device and drove away. It was filled with shrapnel and injured 15 people, 3 of them critically, but tonight all are now out of the hospital. The mayor says it's remarkable that none of the children, some of them under 10, were among the injured.
There were children present in the restaurant. Fortunately, as a mother, none of the victims were children.
Police are checking surveillance cameras in the area in their search for the 2 suspects and a motive.
There's no indication that this is a terrorist act, no indication that this is a hate crime. At this time, we haven't ruled anything out as we start our investigation.
1 month ago, a 25-year-old man killed 10 people when he drove his van down a Toronto sidewalk. He's been charged with murder. No motive has been found for that attack either. Authorities say the injuries could have been much worse with a bomb going off in a crowded restaurant. Tonight, investigators say the attack may have been the work of organized crime figures.